gap to hook, but I just got the Bass Pro ones that are cheaper. They're a wide gap worm hook. I will be adding some weight to it because they are pretty light. The fly itself and the hook is a bit on the light side. So I'll start with that. This is good old-fashioned lead. Please use non-toxic if you feel the need. I had this from an old lead core line that I scavenged from my days working at Sale. So all I'm going to do is spiral some thread on here, and I'll slap some head cement on it just to keep it from going anywhere and unraveling on us. So the thread I'm going to use is just 6/0 olive uni thread. Nothing fancy. You don't need to get too light on your thread. The yarn is pretty bulky, so you want to be able to lash it down good and tight. When I cut this yarn off of the ball, I either cut it with scissors and melt it right away, or use a cauterizing tool, just because, like I said, this stuff likes to unravel. So if you don't, it'll split itself in half, so two sides will unravel and you end up with sort of a thin chenille on either side of it. And we want this to try and stay together. So I'm just stripping off, enough to get the strands tied down. And I'm going to tie it off onto the back side of the hook. And, sorry, the length is 5 inches. These ones are larger. I've tied them in 3.5-inch version for smallmouth bass. This one in particular is 5 inches. So I've put the shorter section on the back side of the hook. Longer piece, which is twice that, it's 10 inches. I'm going to tie on the front side of the hook. Or, well, front side, my side, whichever. Trim the ends off. This stuff is, because it's so bulky and it tends to be a bit messy, you can just, once you've tied the fly off, you can just singe off all the loose flyaway ends that go everywhere. So, it helps if you have the hook moved up in your vise a fair bit, because we're going to need to wrap yarn eventually underneath the hook point. So instead of having it just in the bend, with this one you want to have it higher up in the hook, upside down. And I'm going to pull the yarn not too tight. You want to leave a little bit of space because, like I said, or a little bit of slack, because you need to maneuver and wrap it underneath the hook point. And just going to use a clothespin. Use a clothespin. You can use a bulldog clip. Bulldog clip would probably be a little bit better than clothespin, but this will do me for now. And that's just to hold the yarn. That's like a second hand, or third hand rather, so that I can wrap this. Because what I'm going to be doing is take the long end, wrap it in touching turns, 6 wraps towards the tail, another 6 wraps back to the hook, and then I'll take the clip off and I'll continue up the body. So I'll just start the wrapping here. This, you'll find that because it's not quite so solid, that the whole thing kind of wants to spring and turn on you. That's okay. You can just, even if you let go, you can just pull it tight again. It'll sort itself out. 5. We'll do 6. So get to this point. I'm going to pinch where I've stopped wrapping so I can change the direction back. It's a bit fiddly to do at the start, but once you've done a couple, the yarn in place a bit more. So just wrap. Again, the pattern says 6 wraps forward, 6 wraps back. I don't think you need to be exact. The originator of the pattern seemed pretty keen on exact measurements for the length of the yarn and the number of wraps and everything else. But I don't think it's quite so necessary. So last one's around the top. So what I'm going to do now, I've come to the bend of the hook. I'm going to tuck it around the bend under the yarn and slide it back up underneath the hook point and continue the wraps. This part gets a bit tricky to try and keep your wraps touching still. And I tried doing this just holding the yarn up, wrapping it, and then trying to pierce it back. Just trying to pierce the hook point through it. And you never really get this part tight. Afterwards, it's always got a bit of a bow in it, and that kind of defeats the purpose of having the stiffer body to act as a weed guard. Oh. So, just going to wrap up to the head here.
Exactly. You tight there.
Yeah, that's. I guess, like I said, the guy who came up with this pattern was really keen on measurements.
Exact lengths and turns.
Yeah. So I've got that there. I'm going to cut this off. And like I said, this material ends up being a bit on the messy side, so you sometimes have a bit of cleanup to do at the end, depending on how far back you started it. But give yourself a head on there, tie it off, and make sure eye is clear, and this isn't, there we go. Sometimes it has a bit of a tendency to want to roll to one side or the other. You can just shove it down the hook a bit.
And that won't come off the hook point?
No. I've dragged it through some weeds, had some fish hit it, and it'll slide down, but it won't come up off the point because it's wrapped and then tucked underneath the hook point and wrapped again. So all the material is trapped underneath the hook point. But I mean, there I can lift up and it wants to stay sort of in that same place. The other thing with this, because it is synthetic, because you can melt it. Yeah. You can and the smaller ones, I've got a couple smaller ones here that I've tied before that show a bit better for tapering it. But you can just give it a quick flash with a lighter. And sculpt it a bit, give it a bit more of a worm-like taper. And that's that one. You can tie it in different. This guy's acting up on me. You can tie it in different hook sizes. Again, they called for a 1/0, but you could put on a larger hook if you really wanted to. You can tie them smaller. I've got a couple here you can have a look at in a bit that are about 2.5, 3 inches long.
You
Tied.
still fish that on a sinking line, Sean, or?
You could fish on a sinking line. You could fish on a floating line too. If you want to.
There's no weight in the down.
Yeah. Once the yarn gets wet too, it really sinks pretty quickly, and the lead on the shank doesn't hurt either. But yeah, you could fish it. You could fish it on a sinking line if you're fishing around rock piles and docks, or sometimes just fishing on a floating line and trying to get your cast up underneath the dock is enough, because the bass are going to be sitting down low, but they're still looking up to see if any food falls off the dock for them. So
And you want
either one.
to talk about the colors?
Yeah, I will. Should have said that at the start. The color for this yarn is called green tea, and it was the first. That was the color that was recommended in the pattern. But I've got them. If you can find all the colors of the yarn. They had tons and tons of colors, and they're all blended. So I mean that's the brown, and the green, and then just a cream white. They did have one that I could not find that was black and blue, and it was a great, like, it was like not so much like a faded like a gray or a brown. It was a nice true black and blue. That can be a really deadly color for smallmouth bass, but I could not find it in that color, unfortunately. Comes in mixes of pink and fuchsia, coral, pink and orange. I don't remember. There was
Yeah,
probably a list of about 15 different colors that it originally came in, but it's pretty tough to find now, unfortunately.